What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Red Shirt Movie Podcast, the podcast where everything is connected. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson, and joining me is my co-host, friend, and the person most likely to duel somebody 30 times instead of going to therapy, Alex Perkins. Perk, how you doing tonight?
I'm well. You're bang on with that
one. That's all I can think about when watching this movie. Like, men will literally duel each other instead of seeking professional help. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the podcast where every Perk and I review a movie that's connected to the last one we watched. Like our show, we post pretty much every Friday on podcast services as well as YouTube. You'll give us a follow on TikTok as well. But last week we watched Thelma and Louise, and we followed Harvey Keitel to this week's movie, The Duellists. Perk, why don't you draw it for us?
Yeah, all right. So The Duelist is a 1977 Ridley joint directed by Ridley Scott. Starring Keith Carradine and Harvey Keitel, about two guys who have a scuffle and then duel for the rest of their lives, pretty much. Couple fun facts: Ridley Scott directed somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 commercials.
Jesus Christ!
Before he realized no one was going to approach him about a film, so he decided he would take the lead on that. Had no money, so he grabbed a story that's public domain and wrote the script himself, or commissioned the script. And they shot everything on location. There were no sets because, once again, financial restraints. And then I don't know, the scene stuck out to me, and I kind of understand why now, but during the scene where Dubert proposes to his then wife, or then girlfriend, I suppose.
An arranged marriage thing, yeah.
Yeah, where she's laughing, and it's kind of a goofy scene. It was not scripted like that. One of the horses had a massive erection.
Honestly, I think it worked. I think it added some more humanity to the scene of her just kind of laughing about it.
I don't know. That scene struck me like a blooper. I'm like, they can't control these horses. They're struggling.
I mean, the horse keeping to bother him was funny, but I kind of liked it. It felt more real. That could actually happen. It's like I'm trying to propose and this horse won't stop bugging me. I also saw in the trailer that was his actual girlfriend at the time.
Oh, nice.
Who played that character? I think she was already on set because she was hanging out with them, and he's like, oh, she could be at it. And they're like, okay. I'll go first on The Duelist. I thought this movie was neat. It's a neat little movie. Not a lot of meat in the bone here. It's a pretty simple story about it's two guys dueling just for kind of no reason, and then it eventually gets resolved. But I liked it. I think it's a cool idea for a story. I think we get to see an interesting passage of time, and I didn't really care too much about either character. I didn't really care about the love interests and the side stuff, but the fights were fun to watch, and I thought it was it was a neat little movie.
I thought it was just so outstandingly okay.
Yeah.
And this is a directorial debut, so obviously not everything's going to be perfect, but it certainly has high points, but it also has low points, and I'm obviously more of a critical person sometimes, but there were just a lot of nits to pick at in this one. But I mean, I gave it I don't know, a half-hearted thumbs up. It's not bad.
Yeah.
But it's just painfully okay. That's kind of where I sit on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there are cool things in it. I like his doctor friend, and how they're kind of talking about it, and he's like, well, if you want to avoid it, there's 3 things you can do. 1, don't be in the same place as him. 2, outrank him, and 3, if there's a war going on, it would be unwise to fight each other when there's an active enemy. And then I just love we get the time skip, and it's fuck, we're in the same place, and fuck, we're the same rank. They keep going up at the same level at the same pace. And it's God damn it. It's we're going to fight now. I think that's really funny. And then also the legend of their duel kind of spreads, and people are want to come watch. They want to bet on it. It's I guess we're doing it on horses this time, just to kind of raise the stakes. I think that's also kind of comedic. This movie's kind of funny.
Yeah, there's definitely humor in there.
The whole nature of it is kind of just comedic, even though like either of them could die at any point doing it, right? But yeah, like I said, I don't really care about any of like the side stuff, like the love interest or anything else. Like that's whatever. But just like the nature of the duel not being able to end and it keep escalating and all that, I found pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I thought that the the duel parts were definitely cool to watch and fun, and it felt like the movie was kind of hanging on for dear life in between.
Yeah.
Like I just I could not be bothered to care.
Mm-hmm.
None of the love interests are especially compelling. The like the main characters themselves, I think, have almost nothing to them. And I mean, not saying like anyone was bad, but I thought Keith Carradine didn't wow me. I thought he just kind of seemed fairly. I don't know. He was there.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot he necessarily had to do from an acting range standpoint, just because his character doesn't really have anything to him. And the opposing character also is just like he's a fiery gambler. That's what we know, and they fight, and neither of them has motivation, and nobody knows that, which I think is cool. But it's weird.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
The futility of it all is kind of the point, though, right? It's like about just like how stupid like pride and honor is, and the relationship. Again, there's not a lot there, but I think it is still interesting. Of like, is it Dubert like getting him off like the execution list? You know?
Yeah.
Even though he's the one that kind of wants this to end, he's still like he knows that he cares so much. Cares so much about honor that he's like, well, I'll get you out of this, and we'll probably fight again someday. You know, like, or even like they have that moment in Russia where they kind of have to team up to fight against some enemies. I remember like what the conflict was, but you know, they shoot the guys and it's like, pistols next time, huh? Like as much as he wants it to end, he's still kind of like, they're both in it and they both know they can't really break out of it. Cause like this unwritten rule of like, you just have to do it. Cause it's just like a men thing. But like you look at it from any third person view and it's like, this is so fucking stupid, you know? But that's kind of the
point.
I
mean, it's obviously it's a different time and customs are different, but yeah, it all seems like why don't you just not? Because you're a gentleman, of course, and I get it, but yeah, it all seems kind of just stupid. Yeah, and that is the point for sure.
Yeah. One other just little detail I liked, because similar to like the horse thing is with bugging him is I think it's the third duel. I mean, I think the second one, I don't know, but they're on the field and they're getting ready to go. And then Dubert's like, hold on. He has to sneeze. He's like, all right, let's get back. Like, those little things add a lot of just humanity and realism to it. And there's not a lot of it, but there's little stuff like that I think adds this movie quite a bit.
Well, so that was their second duel. I suppose that is supposed to suggest that he's sick and not at full capacity or something.
Oh, I didn't get that. I just thought like, oh, he's had a sneeze.
Okay. Well, that I don't know. The way he was kind of acting that scene made me think he was like trying to look sick, but maybe it was just simply a sneeze, I guess. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there are a lot of like strong little points like that. The biggest strength for me is the shot composition and cinematography.
Yeah.
This is like Kubrick does this kind of thing too, but there were a lot of static cams, and when there's static cam, it almost like every time they use that, it almost feels like this is a painting. You know, I think that they really emphasize the beauty, and they even have like oftentimes the characters will be like paused, like, you know, in ready to duel and all that, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. It's very artistic. It makes it kind of feel like a painting is going on.
Yeah, especially the last shot of the movie too is.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Gorgeous, yeah.
Yeah, it's just really well done from a visual standpoint. Like that, I think that's Ridley Scott's like biggest win out of this movie. It's like clearly he knows how to put a shot together.
Right. I kind of thought Keitel was going to jump off the cliff at the end. Did you get any of that vibe?
No, I didn't really know what was going to happen because I Honestly, when we see Furrow walking away, and then they cut back and they show you what happened, I almost kind of wish they didn't do that. Kind of left it more up in the air, but it puts more of a finality to things that they did. So, but yeah, I didn't think he was going to jump or anything. I kind of just like him looking off into the sunset as like the final.
Yeah. I thought maybe like he's just like, well, I have nothing left to live for, but that'd be pretty dark. And it's like, you know, this is also based on a true story, and that's basically what happened. Is it got to the point where it's like, bro, fucking stop, like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we've done this too much. Because I think it was Furrow instigating the whole time, because he's like, you dishonored me, you have to, and we never killed each other, so we have to keep doing this. And Dubert's like, you know what, we fought enough. I could have killed you. I'm choosing not to kill you. You're done. You know. So yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
There's another thing I really liked was, and this is more used towards the like earlier duels, but specifically the horseback duel, the editing choice where he like throws in just really short clips of flashbacks. I really like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like, it's not like it is just like a little flash. It's not a whole interlaid scene. It's just like a quick flash. I thought that was really powerful, and I'm kind of bummed that it seemed to go away after that one. I don't know if maybe he just got his groove back or something, but like I liked how the first few, it's kind of him building to like, oh, this surely ends in my death this time. But he kind of gets over that, and he's like, whatever, I'm better now, I guess. But
yeah, no, you really felt.
I really liked that.
The first one.
I love the way that like that scene was put together. With, you can see his hand shaking when he's going for his sword, and all these flashbacks showing the split in his mind, and yeah, I thought that was great.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about is like, there's this plot thread at the end about like Furrow being like a Napoleon man, and then Napoleon goes down, so that's where he's going to get executed, and then Dubert is like becomes like a royalist, and part of me wished that was more fleshed out, and that could have been another like used as another kind of way for them to be in conflict. Another part of me is like, just take all of it out. I really don't care. It's like, I feel like this movie could have just been a duel, time skip, duel, time skip, duel, and then we get to the end like without anything else. But that probably would have been a 45-minute movie.
Yeah, that I feel like it's tough because you need to stretch it out. Like it's the right length. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, I was a little bored at times, but it doesn't feel too short or too long necessarily. But yeah, if it were just skipping between duels, that would make like a really good short film, maybe, which maybe is what this should have been. Because if you're gonna spend all that time in between on character moments, you kind of gotta have characters.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because like, the true story is, I mentioned the intro, but they fought like 30 times. Like, it was insane.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And it's like, so they could have done a lot more if they wanted to, but yeah, I think this is like you said, like a pretty solid debut from Ridley Scott, and especially in the shot composition department, it shows like, okay, this guy's got some skill, you know. I don't know. I'm assuming this led to bigger and better things. This was a good jumping off point for him. But
yeah, for sure. Couple of like little there was also the one a line I really, really liked, which I wrote down because I liked it so much. It's when I believe it's Furrow says, I once knew a man who was stabbed by his wife out of surprise, and I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember the woman's name. Yeah, I don't remember
Laura.
her name.
Her name's Laura.
Laura, that's right. She says, I once knew a woman beaten to death by her husband. I don't think she was surprised at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, damn. That's such a good line. And I mean, there's like similar lines going around today.
Yeah, I also know that line as well. That was great. I didn't really care about why it was, like, the context of it all. I'm like, what is she doing exactly? Like, she's going to get a look at him because she's worried about him dying. I don't know. But yeah, it was a good line, for sure.
There's like one big weird, like sore thumb stuck out thing for me, which is
Okay.
actually a thing in another movie that we watched this week as a bonus review.
Mm-hmm.
The accents thing throws me off.
Yeah.
It pulls me out of it. Where that they don't have any characters do accents other than their natural tongue, which you know what? Fair enough, it's a choice to make, but I don't know, because you're not going to make the movie in French, are you? There's clearly, I think, one French actor who, like, you can tell that she has a French accent,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe she's putting one on. But I don't know why she would be putting one on if no one else was. But it's just it kind of throws you a lot of times, because like, what, this dude's just talking in like a straight American accent, while like wearing, like, it's almost oftentimes I almost forget like that this is in France, because so much of the cast have British accents and a few have American. The point that it stuck out the most is when they have to have a line of dialogue to explain that one woman is his sister, because she has a British accent. He has an American accent.
Yeah.
And so they have to have a line of dialogue explaining that that's his sister.
Yeah.
Because it almost feels like you're having to do too much to like justify this choice. I think maybe just cast French actors.
With what budget, though? You know, that's the thing. It's like...
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I don't know where like Harvey Keitel and Keith Carradine were along in their careers at this point. This is 1977, so it's a long time ago. But it's just it's weird, because the idea of a movie is to be able to kind of throw yourself into a world, and every time there's like a British guy talking to an American guy in the French barracks, it's like it kind of pulls you out of it a little bit.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. No, yeah, I hear you. That stuff doesn't bother me that much, but like I understand what you're saying, and I think if this movie was made now, everyone would have either it'd be in French or people would have French accents just to make things fit more in the world and stuff.
And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is that from a nitpick standpoint, which I know nitpicks are dumb, but it kind of pulls you out of it sometimes. I don't like narration when it's done like this. Like, I feel like a lot of the narration in this movie could almost be done with like a title card. And instead of just having like some random American guy, I don't even know who did the narration, but some random American guy just talks about what happened.
Yeah.
And sets it up. And then
I kind of liked it, but I wish there was more or none. Right. I think there was like an opening one. There's maybe one or two in the middle.
And then it kind of falls off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we're given during the fight at the ruin.
Yeah.
We're given Dubert's inner monologue, which has never been done throughout the rest of the film. Like, this is the first scene where he like starts inner monologuing and we can hear it. It's just like weird. We've never had this before. It almost feels like felt the need to kind of add some more, but you didn't have like a decent mechanic in the scene to do so. So it kind of was like, wait, why all of a sudden can we hear his thoughts? I don't know.
Did we get inner monologue, or was that just a flashback of what had happened?
No, I'm pretty sure that was while they were walking around. Like, while they were...
What were the lines? I don't remember the lines of what he was saying.
I don't remember either.
Maybe you're right.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm we can go hash it out. I honestly don't care to. I might be wrong.
Fair. Yeah. But, I will say, just a narrative thing, I did like the opening of this movie. I'll read the quote here. The duelists demand satisfaction. Honor for him is an appetite. The story is about an eccentric kind of hunger. It is a true story and begins in the year that Napoleon Bonaparte became ruler of France. I don't know. I think it's a nice way to kind of set up the story and kind of get you.
I agree.
In the world.
That's fair. That was a title card.
I think the narrator says it was a title card, and the narrator said it. Maybe.
And narration. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there was definitely a narrator point in the middle when they were like jumping to Russia or whatever, and it's like this happened and this or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, if this is a short film where we get a dual time skip with a narrator in between each one, I would have liked that quite a bit. I think that could have been a really cool watch.
I don't think it, like, I think it's much better if you do.
Yeah.
Because none of the female characters are especially intriguing. They kind of just exist as like a way so that the character doesn't have to say their own thoughts out loud. Something to bounce lines off of.
Yeah.
There was another movie recently that we watched that
I know.
Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, okay.
In Top Gun Maverick, like the woman they introduced as the bartender and love interest for Tom Cruise, she doesn't contribute a lot to the story. She's just kind of there so that Tom Cruise can say his thoughts out loud and it not be weird.
Right. I mean, that's one of like the rules of like script writing. I feel like it's like you kind of need either you do inner dialogue, inner monologue, which no one does because it's not great, or you have to come up with someone for your character to talk to. That's why we have all those dumb sidekicks in Disney. Or you can do both.
Like in this movie.
Yeah, at the very end.
I'll die on that hill. Yeah, you're right. Like all the talking Disney animal sidekicks.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I mean that's the Duelist. As far as recommendations, I don't really have any. I don't know if I'd recommend this movie. I'd say if you're doing a Ridley Scott, deep dive, it's not like a bad one. It's like definitely watch this one.
No, yeah, we talked. There's a lot of good and a lot of not so good, but it's like worth the price of admission, and it's a short movie. It's not going to take too much of your time.
You could also just like watch the fights on YouTube if you want to.
Yeah. I also didn't mention, but I didn't love all the shaky cam in like the first duel.
The first duel between them two, or the very first duel of the movie?
I don't remember. I just remember the first duel one of them had a lot of shaky.
Yeah, I think it's when they first fight, like in that courtyard. Okay. I didn't like that either.
It's just
I did like the opening duel of Harvey Keitel killing the mayor's son or whatever.
Yeah,
that was a nice choreography. It
was a very effective way to start the story for sure.
Yeah. Do you have any recommendations?
We'll talk about one later that I think is like a similar for time period, I guess, but it's no, not really. Structurally it's very unique. Yeah, I like a lot of the way that the structure and the story is kind of set up. For that reason, there's not a lot similar that I can recommend.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That is our review of The Duellists, and stay tuned. My review we're watching next week. But as Perk hinted at, we got a bonus review. We actually have a lot of bonus reviews this week. So we're just gonna jump right in. Perk, talk to me about the Holdovers first. Let's get that one out of the way because I've already talked about it.
The Holdovers. Jacob has already mentioned it on the pod because he saw it. It's delightful. It's a story about a shut-in, like solitary professor who has to get stuck spending the winter holidays at the boarding school with one unlucky student and the cook who's mourning her son. And it feels like a warm blanket. It's just such a wonderful movie, and it has so much heart, overflowing with heart. It's so good to watch, so cathartic. Like this is probably, probably it's got to be in my top 5 like Christmas holiday movies of all time. And it takes place in the 70s. I saw it with my folks, and they were like, "Wow, it's like incredible how well this was set for the 70s. Like it's so spot on to the time." And I mean, I wasn't there in the 70s, but I felt very in the moment.
Yeah, it really draws you in.
Yes, and you absolutely care about all the characters. There are so many beautiful, emotional moments that like I was tearing up.
Yeah.
There's one scene in particular that was hit maybe a little too close to home for my mom that I didn't know about before we went in, but just another really just heart-tugging scene that's just so well done. Like, this is gonna end up near the top of my like movies of the year list for sure. Can't recommend it enough. Like, everybody, please go see it in a theater. Please support this movie so that we get more like it.
Yeah, 100%. This is a great Christmas movie and highly recommend to everybody. One thing I think is interesting is like I agree with you. It feels like a warm hug, but it's funny that it feels like that despite how much yelling and conflict there is.
I know,
but it's so interesting, and like, yeah, I absolutely just adore the movie, and I want everybody to see it. Have you seen any other Alexander Payne movies?
I don't think so.
I
will super awkwardly check right in the middle of our podcast.
Before this movie came out, I heard a lot of people kind of love him or hate him kind of a thing, or like he can just be pretty mixed on his stuff.
Sure.
But watching this, I'm like, I mean, this is outstanding. Like, I wouldn't have guessed that this director was like, I don't know, not everyone loved him, because this movie is just outstanding.
I believe I've seen The Descendants.
Oh, okay.
Which I quite liked. It's another like just kind of easy to watch, fun movie.
That's Clooney, right?
Yes. I remember him running around in flip-flops. Flip-flops is very funny. Yeah, that'd be the only other Payne movie I've seen. Gotcha. But now I want to go watch more. Like, I know Nebraska was a Best Picture nom, and I better go check that out.
Yeah, I think Sideways is the one that we did with Giamatti.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if your family doesn't mind harsh language, I think this is a great Christmas family movie to go watch. Maybe if you don't got any young kids.
Like if you're in a family that's got older children, especially if they're nerds who like movies, it's a great movie for the holiday for sure.
Yeah. I'll give my little quick bonus review as well, and then we'll get into the big stuff. Watched Legally Blonde with my roommates recently, and I haven't seen it forever. I watched it when I was a kid. Movie's still fun. It wasn't as fun as I was hoping on the rewatch. Like, it's still a good time, and like there's a lot of just really goofy stuff in it, and the way the movie treats the gay community, I'm just like, this is not aged well. But on the whole, it's a good time. Reese Witherspoon's great. I think it's a shocker to anybody that Legally Blonde is fun. So there's that. But Perk, let's get into the big stuff. Let's go chronologically.
All right, let's do that.
So Perk and I saw 3 movies together this last week, which is unprecedented.
It was kind of cute.
Yeah, it was a great time. First one was Chevalier. So this is, if you remember, if you're a fan of the podcast, we did this a few months ago, where there's a theater in Minneapolis that shows a movie the first Thursday of every month for pretty cheap. And they often highlight kind of stories from less represented communities. And Chevalier takes place around the same time as the Duellists. Napoleon, or not Napoleon, or yes, Napoleon was after.
This is pre-Napoleonic France.
Marie Antoinette era. It's about a Chevalier who kind of rises to prominence due to his fencing and violin and just musical skills. But he's black, and there's still a lot of discrimination at the time. It's kind of just his story.
He's the child of a slave and her slave master, and his father brings him to France at a very young age and puts him in a pretty high school, and because he has a gift with the violin, and he thrives from there and turns into a brilliant violinist and fencer and composer.
Yeah, and his name is Joseph Bourguignon, I believe is how you pronounce it. Perk, what do you think of Chevalier?
I didn't like it. And I feel bad that I didn't like it, because there are some really important themes, and the acting is quite good. I think the lead actor, Kelvin, is it Washington?
Kelvin Harrison Jr.
Kelvin Harrison Jr. And Samara Weaving.
You got it.
Yeah. Okay. I think they're both great. I think they really add a lot with their performance. There's just, it's troublesome because not a lot is learned. No, not a lot is known about this man, because a lot of that history was erased.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of room for the storytellers to kind of elaborate with what they see fit, and I think in a lot of those ways they kind of go exactly the way that I assumed they would go. It ends up being a pretty fairly predictable movie. It starts off with the very first scene is Joseph at a Mozart concert, going up on stage and out-dueling Mozart on a violin, which is a cool scene because he just dunks on Mozart, and Mozart's like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And but it didn't happen. They were peers, so they may have knew each other. They may have had a relationship. We don't know.
Yeah.
But this interruption at a performance didn't happen. It's kind of a cool fact, but that scene is modeled after a real life occurrence where Jimi Hendrix went up on the stage at an Eric Clapton concert and played him off the stage.
Yeah.
Which I think that's a cool tip of the cap, but it's very weird to kind of throw into this movie. I don't know. I'm always kind of a stickler for accuracy. I don't know. That's not always true, but it felt a little bit contrived. It's like, yeah, he's going to go up there and he's going to beat Mozart. And I think another part of the movie that I didn't love is the main character is kind of peerless. Like he doesn't really he struggles against society, but he is very strong at everything. He's just kind of beaten down by the system, which is very fair, but for that reason he doesn't really have too much of an arc outside of there is an arc with him and his mother where he goes back to his roots, but that's like almost like the C plot.
It's barely in there right at the end, Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a really nice scene when he goes back, down into the like Caribbean village and plays the hand drum with everybody, and it's a good scene, but it's like, this is how this was going to go. As soon as his mother arrived in France, we knew that the answer was to go back to his roots.
Yeah.
And then in his final performance in the movie, he plays the song that his mother hummed to him, which I knew that was going to happen the second she hummed the song.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's like the movie has a lot of good messages. Sorry to just eat up all the airspace. But the movie has a lot of good messages and a lot of good themes. It's just it feels very paint by numbers, and that it didn't really sell me. Yeah. Oh, and this is what I was referring to earlier when I talked about how it can feel weird when they make the decision to not do accents, because Calvin Harrison Jr. He is an American man who does like almost like a half-hearted British accent at times, and most of the actors are British. I don't think they're. I mean, I'm sure there are, but I can't think of any like obvious French accents that we ran into over the course of the film. So, and they're talking about going to London, and it's weird because with just the interactions between all the characters, it almost feels like we are in London.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of talk of being a Frenchman and all that, and it's kind of harder to get in there. Yeah, I'm in a very similar place.
Rant over.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar place as you. I think if I can praise one thing, I really love the editing in this movie. There's a duel that happens that I think is so efficiently edited, and it's like people need to do this more. I won't spoil it, but that scene was just like freaking awesome.
It was really well done. I agree. There were a lot of good editing moments.
Yeah, it's like I want to give the flowers to the editor on that. I think it was very well edited, and the music is cool to hear. Right, there's some really cool songs and stuff because just violins are cool. But yeah, I'm with you. Like this movie is so predictable and therefore just not surprising and just kind of boring, and that's really unfortunate because I think this figure is very important and it should be taught in schools and people should know about him. But just as a film, it's just not as compelling as I would have liked because, like you said, you just kind of know everything's going to happen. And you're just like, okay. So yeah, I won't go on too long because I agree with pretty much everything you said. I wish it was, a bit more surprising, a bit more, I don't know, just compelling, I guess. But I'd be remiss not to mention that we saw this in a fairly full theater. And the crowd was really involved. The crowd was having a good time. Well, at the beginning they were. I don't know if they were still. Well, there were some. I could feel some energy towards the end when they were getting in some good moments towards the end, and I feel like a lot more people in there enjoyed the movie than we did, and that's good because if the more people enjoy this movie, the better because it's a message that should get out there. Yeah. Yeah, it's the thing where I wonder about sometimes, Perk, where it's like, have we watched too many movies where it's like sometimes a movie is kind of like this, where it's kind of paint by numbers? would we have
Yeah,
liked it
I
more
mean,
if we'd seen less movies? Because
if this was the first movie of this kind of pattern that I had seen,
yeah,
yeah, I think I would be much more compelled, but it unfortunately it kind of fits just so heavily into certain tropes.
yeah, because it's a satisfying pattern,
Hmm.
but it's just not interesting anymore because we've just seen
It's
it a
just
lot.
yeah, we know how it's gonna go. He's gonna excel. He's gonna be set back. Like he's gonna have to fight. He's gonna have to go back to his roots.
And the thing
He's
they
gonna
set up
come
earlier in
out
the
on
movie is
top in
what's
the
going
end.
to be used at the end. Like, yeah, we've just
Yeah.
seen a lot of it. So yeah, yeah. I wish I liked it more, but it's not a bad movie. It's a fine
No, it's
fine
not
movie.
bad at all. Yep.
Well, the next movie we watched together, Perk, was The Boy and the Heron, the new Miyazaki movie, which I wanted to mention. I believe the Japanese name is How Do You Live, which is in the movie as a little like, Easter egg. And I've heard people say like they wish the American name was also How Do You Live because that's more fitting. But Perk, talk to me about The Boy and the Heron. What'd you think of it?
So on what you just mentioned, the head of Ghibli picked the name for the English version.
Oh, really?
Which
Interesting.
yeah, which one of the heads, one of Miyazaki's peers at Ghibli. Yeah, which I agree. I think how do you live is a more interesting name, but
less
we've
marketable, I guess, for American audiences.
yeah, they try to dumb it down for us Canadian Americans, which fair enough. Yeah, so I know we differ on this one a little bit, but I loved it. This full marks for me, one of my favorites of the year. It feels just so summative of like the other Ghibli movies I've seen. There are maybe that could be a negative for some people, but there are a lot of things kind of brought in from his previous work. There's a lot of Spirited Away in this, which I love.
Really, yeah, there's a ton.
Spirited Away. I like this doesn't unseat Spirited Away for me, but it's way up there. I had such a wonderful time with this movie. The just beautiful settings, the gorgeous animation, the POV character who kind of seems to be a stand-in of like Miyazaki himself. I loved his relationship with his mom, the way his relationship develops with his aunt, even if it was maybe not as fleshed out as it could have been. His relationship with the bird, I don't know. It's hard to explain. I can't be too like analytical about it, but this is just a movie that really resonated with me personally, and I'm gonna go see it again for sure, just because I know I have friends who want to see it, so I'll absolutely take the opportunity.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to like this movie more, but I just had a hard time connecting with it. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's just a not for me movie. As this time before with me and Miyazaki, I feel like I don't know. I feel like I just don't get it with some of his movies, and I feel kind of dumb because I see so many people talk about how much they connect with it or they get it. Like I was reading Letterboxd reviews of Boy and the Heron, and I knew it beforehand too. Like this movie is kind of Miyazaki dealing with retirement and kind of saying goodbye to his career and all that. And I'm reading these reviews, people have been like, "Oh, it's so obvious that he's doing this," or it's an allegory for this. And I'm just like, I just didn't see it. Like if you thinking back to some of the plot points and explaining it a little bit, I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. I think talking about we were saying earlier, where often you have to have two characters so you can have a dialogue between them and you can understand how a character, what they're thinking and what they want to do. I wish there was more dialogue in this movie. I wish there was more conversations between Mahito and other characters. I feel like there's a lot of quiet moments, which are like beautiful. Like there's some just gorgeous scenes in this. But I kind of wanted more of Mahito and kind of all of the supporting cast and just conversations about feelings. I feel like a lot of the conversation at the end were just kind of like, we have to do this, we have to go get this, we have to go to this location, and not really how characters are feeling. And I think it's just Miyazaki's style, right? And for me, it's just I just don't always connect with it. It kind of feels like his movies kind of feel like a dream sometimes, where the fantastical events happen, and they can feel kind of sudden at times of, oh, then this suddenly happens. But with a dream, like you're in it and things are kind of crazy, but you feel like there was a message to it. And to me, that felt like that, but I didn't get the message. And I wish I had. And maybe, I don't know, Maybe if I'd watched the sub, it would have been easier. I don't know, but just because I watch so much anime, maybe it would have been easier for me to get it but with that way. But I think to praise, like I think the soundtrack is awesome. Like it is beautiful,
really well done. I agree. I felt the same way about Spirited Away. There's just a lot of like quiet piano moments.
Ton of like really Breath of the Wild vibes from if you've played that. Any listeners, but yeah, I loved the soundtrack. And then it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's goes without saying with Ghibli at this point, but the fire, any scene with fire in this movie, I think was just, they made fantastic decisions on how they wanted to depict that, and they really morph the shapes, and like you really felt kind of the fear of fire and all that. Like that was really, really cool. So yeah, like technically, of course, the movie is outstanding. I just had a hard time connecting with it, unfortunately.
Fair enough. I feel like Miyazaki's works are very personal.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who absolutely love Howl's Moving Castle, and neither of us were really super on board with that one.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was just, part of it is I was so entranced by Spirited Away that I saw so much of that in this movie that it really struck a chord.
Right, for sure. And yeah, Spirited Away, I enjoy because I think I was able to connect with more because that's about kind of going to a new place, trying a new thing, trying to start a new life. Whereas I think this one is trying to be kind of more like similar, but you're trying to giving something up. And in my personal life, I just haven't gone through that to the same extent, to the point where I could connect with it. I don't know, but yeah, not a bad movie, obviously, just not for me. But
fair enough.
The last one we watched, Perk, Godzilla Minus One, which I had to drag you to. You were trying to dodge me on this movie.
So the backstory here, ladies and gentlemen, Godzilla Minus One kind of popped up out of nowhere into the zeitgeist in the last couple of weeks, and everyone's rapidly singing its praises. And so, like, it's something where, like, yeah, I would take a look in that direction, but I probably wouldn't have gone and seen it in a theater if you hadn't drug me to it. And honestly, if I had even other options, like there are some movies out there that I need to see, like Dream Scenario. I should go see Killers of a Flower Moon, but that's a commitment. And Poor Things, which turns out is not out yet. But yeah, you pulled me into this one, and I can't say I was disappointed.
Yeah, I can go first on this one. I freaking love this movie. What's so funny is we saw an anime before this, and we watched this. I thought this was way more anime and just energy and plot structure and characters. So I feel like I was able to connect with it a lot more. I don't want to spoil anything, but I just wanted to set up it's an opening scene. Like the main character as a kamikaze pilot who fled his duty, I think is so fascinating as a character, and the way he progresses and the things he has to deal with in this movie, I think are just so interesting to watch and so tragic. And this movie is like not even about Godzilla. Like the movie's called Godzilla Minus One, but it's not about him at all. And I was so invested in the characters. I was kind of frustrated when we got to an action scene because I'm like, I want to go back to the characters. Like I don't care about Godzilla. But then Godzilla comes on screen and he is so terrifying. Like, oh yeah,
it's so well done.
Like I've not been afraid of Godzilla in forever because he's become kind of a meme at this point with the modern American movies, and he's a hero now and all, like. But Godzilla is absolutely terrifying in this film. And there's, again, don't want to spoil it, but there's the first time he uses his atomic breath. Oh my god! Like holy shit! Like this movie is just insane.
The first time he uses his ultra laser is like, at least for this year, second only to the bomb in Oppenheimer. Like that's the only thing that is even in the conversation. Oh boy, the way that they do that scene, the way that the sound design works, the way that like kind of the audio cuts out and then bam, like it is so amazing, it's so well done.
And Perk, I don't know if you saw this, but the budget for this movie, did you see this?
No, I didn't. But what is it?
$15 million.
You're joking.
It is $15
There's no
million
way, dude. All right, like
insane.
I get you don't have any big name actors you have to pay, but there is a ton of like CG that had to be done for this, and it all looks a lot better than
good.
some of the recent schlock that Marvel's putting out there.
Yeah,
like,
I wonder if some of it was practical because like his head kind of looks a little practical. Godzilla's head a little bit. I don't know, but yeah, like 15 million for this movie, like that's incredible. And like
that is nonsense. Wow, what a like perfect execution of your budget.
Yeah, yeah,
because that. Oh man, and maybe it is some puppetry. If it is, it's like perfect. It's so well done.
Yeah, and all that is to say, I don't even like. I barely care about Godzilla. Like, I was so invested in this main character and his friends and his family and everything that happens. Like, yeah, and then the ending, like the very very ending, we have issues with whatever the final like shot, but the way his story resolves, I was just so beautiful and like earned. And I just really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I love this movie. I hope people go out and see it because it is amazing.
Yeah, I was like, I was a little less emphatic about it than you were, but I really liked it. And I agree that I think like everyone should try and go see this because this is what we want to encourage.
Yeah,
you know, kind of a shoestring budget, but really well made. My like the only thing that I didn't love necessarily is that. While I like that they actually focus on the characters, I still wish there was more with the characters. So, and it's not too long. It's like 2 hours, which is perfect. But
yeah,
I agree with you. When Godzilla's on the screen, it's very visually entertaining. But it's like I like the relationships that develop. I think need a little more. They need a little more to kind of really get fully built. And yeah, there's some weird choices at the end, but I'm not really considering those in my like review of it. I think it's absolutely a good time. It's best enjoyed on a big screen for sure. So please go see this one while it's out. Yeah. Go double feature with the Holdovers and get just like the most tonal dissonance you could possibly find.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I just love it. And I want to mention too, like I think this is a cool. And this is not uncommon with Godzilla, like old Godzilla, I should say. Godzilla now is, again, the American version, kind of a meme. But like Japanese Godzilla has initially started as kind of a critique of the Japanese government and other things like that. And this movie goes there. It's like, hey, like during this time, Japan was pretty fucked up. And I appreciate them like just like talking about that because it educates us who don't know as much. But yeah, like Godzilla in this movie is an allegory, right? He's not actually just a monster. Like this is not a monster movie. This is an allegory for war.
That is something that like threw me a little bit because it's like Godzilla in like old like in the old movies like from the 50s. Mm-hmm. Godzilla is a metaphor for the bombs.
The very first one, yeah, before like Mothra and Mechagodzilla get introduced.
Yeah, it's the original Godzilla is like the best metaphor ever made.
Yeah.
For a bomb. And it's a little like it's interesting to see that kind of like this is the aftermath of the bombs.
Well, okay, so that's why I want to Godzilla shows up. I don't know if the atomic bombs were actually dropped on Japan in this movie. They said there were air raids and that like destroyed Tokyo, but I don't think like again, I want to get into spoilers because I want people to go see this movie, sure. But like something happens where Godzilla mutates due to a bomb. But I don't think bombs were actually dropped on Japan. Atomic bombs. I think Godzilla is like the atomic bomb, essentially.
Okay, I see.
I think it's a little bit unclear, but
it doesn't necessarily need to be like super because that's the point. It's not hand fed, but yeah, I could see that. Maybe it is like this is the end, but this is before still like the bombs are still coming. So
I think this is like an alternate timeline where like,
okay,
I don't think this is like a historical, obviously, but like it's historical in fact, like up into like in real life, the U.S. dropped 2 bombs on Japan. In this telling of history, there was just they lost, but there wasn't actually an atomic bomb used. But then whatever, things happen in the movie. But just one last thing I want to say about with the action, like we're saying, even though we were kind of like a little bit frustrated, like, oh, Godzilla's back, I want to see one of the characters. Like every time Godzilla was on screen, he pushed the character story forward. Like the actions of Godzilla pushed the character in a new direction or to a new thing. And like, it was never just like for fan service, right? And that's not something you can say about the American Godzilla movies. That's pretty much all just CG mumbo jumbo fan service stuff, right? And it's like I can't imagine myself watching those now. It's like we have Godzilla Minus One. What are you doing with Godzilla X Kong?
This is
New Kingdom, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, this is the first Godzilla property I've seen. So the bar set pretty high. I think I kind of want to go watch the original, like the
me too.
1950s Godzilla. Maybe we'll work that in at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Wink, wink. But like it doesn't, because the Americanized versions, is that take place in like New York?
Yeah,
because it doesn't work. The metaphor doesn't hold really.
Yeah.
So maybe like Mothra could work for New York if you think of other certain things from the past, but it resonates so much differently for Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, I don't really have any interest to watch the Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla X Kong nonsense. Ain't nobody paying attention to the dark universe or whatever they're calling it.
Exactly. Yeah. So go see this movie. It is freaking awesome. Before we end, Perk, you got a little book review you want to throw in?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw in some book review on you because I'm a book guy. I read 3 books this year. That's like a new record.
Oh shit.
I read 1 book and then I read books 1 and 2 in a series. So I already talked about Legendborn like forever ago when I managed to read it. So this is for my book club that I'm in. I'm super official. We read, the first book is called Fourth Wing, and the second book is called Iron Flame. And the premise is kind of like a combination of Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. So like it's dragon centric with like students at this war college. I've been told it's not young adult fiction because there's a lot of sex. But for me, it's like it reads kind of like a lot of those YA books, like your Percy Jackson, like your Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fun. It's really good to read. Outside of, there are a few pretty graphic, intimate scenes, which this book wasn't written for me, and I understand that. But like the storyline and everything is very compelling, and just kind of fun to read. So if you like, I don't know, I give them both both of the books are a pretty firm thumbs up. So if you're looking for kind of that energy that you got from Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, but now you're an adult, so like sex and death is okay to have in books. Check out Fourth Wing, check out Iron Flame. They're both very good. I just finished Iron Flame earlier today. I got a lot of thoughts that I'm going to dissect at book club.
Hell yeah, love to hear it. I'm going to say was one of the last thing too. I was going to hold off because I'm making a video about it, but I finished a video game today called The Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. I was telling Perk about this weekend. It's a game where you play as a witch that got exiled from her coven because she's a fortune teller and she saw in the future the coven was going to fall apart. And her boss is like, well, fuck you. You're going to be exiled. And I just absolutely loved it. Perk, I don't know if you played a lot of narrative games or if you have ones where you can make decisions.
If you're talking like more towards the like Telltale type narrative, not a lot of experience outside of Telltale.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not a massive narrative game guy or like visual novel guy. I played a couple, but as far as narrative stuff with decisions, I'm thinking of like The Witcher 3, where like you can have like 2 options to say in like a conversation, or like Telltale, I guess. But this game is all about choices, and I really, really felt like every choice I made mattered and affected the plot, which like is not easily said in video games. Like Perk and I were talking about, like Telltale feels like you have a choice, but at the end there's like 2 options, and it's like, okay, not everything actually mattered here. But in this game, I absolutely adored it. I thought all of the characters were super compelling. The art is incredible. The soundtrack is insane. It is like lo-fi beats, but like way more emotional. And I just adored it. And I'm going to make a video about it, so I'm not going to go too much more. But if you want like a really cool narrative game with really impactful choices, and you like kind of witchy, cozy vibes, cannot recommend enough the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. Check it out.
And where can we find that video?
It'll be on my personal YouTube channel, Jacob_the Beard, hopefully coming out in January. If I can get it done quickly. But yeah, look out for that. But that is our show for this week. Thank you everyone for watching our little extra long one here. Next week, we are going to be following Albert Finney, who played like a lot of the guys in the Duelist looked the same, and I was very confused on who was who and some of the side characters. He was one of the guys. I don't know.
He was the colonel who struck him off the list, right? I think that's
maybe, right. I don't know. A lot of there was a guy who also looked just like Dubert. I'm just like, anyway. But Albert Finney's who we're following. We're going to the original Murder on the Orient Express, the 1974 one, not the Kenneth Branagh modern remake, the 1974 Murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah, the first American film adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express.
And you can watch that on Fubo or Kanopy, and you can also rent it. So next week, the 74 Murder on the Orient Express on Fubo, Kanopy, and rent. And until then, thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.